everyone, and welcome. I'm Dr. Michael Greger, coming to you from my Treadmill to Do webinar on thyroid issues, because it is one of the most common questions I'm asked in my monthly Q&As. First, though, just to allow slackers some time to join and to reward those who are on time, let's do a quick little fun giveaway. I'm going to show you a strange fruit or vegetable, and the first person to correctly identify said fruit or vegetable will get a signed, personalized copy of my latest book, How Not to Diet. So we're going to do it in the chat. So what you got to do is go to the bottom of the little Zoom screen, click the chat button, it'll open a little sidebar. And then at the bottom, make sure you are chatting to both panelists and attendees. So send chat to panelists and attendees so everyone can see your chats. So we can see who gets the right answer. All right. So make sure the chat sidebar is open. Are you ready? Get ready to type your guess. The first person to get it right wins the book. Are you ready? Now, I was actually going to go grab one from the local Asian market so I could hold it up, but I didn't have time. So I'm just going to show you a picture. Who can tell me what this crazy thing is? All right, first person, let's see it. Let's see the chat. Oh my God, there's like a million. Hopefully we're going to be able to find this. Okay, let's see who got it. Okay, I'm scrolling through the chat. It is not French fries. Ha! It's not ugly fruit. Okay, oh my God, we got a couple. It's not ginger. Oh, we got lots of right answers, but let's see who was the first one to get the right answer. Boy, that's the problem when you have thousands of people on a call. This is great. It's not okay. I think I got to the beginning. And the first person to get it right, not a jackfruit, not a durian, not a dragon fruit, a lot of jackfruit, not a lychee, not a lemon, not a durian. Oh, Sarah Sierra, you did it. She was just, her text is just a panelist. She didn't switch over to panelists and attendees. So I don't think anyone can actually see her text, but Sarah Sierra said Buddha's hand. I also would have accepted fingered citron, or the Latin name Citrus medica sarcodactylus, but the common terminology is Buddha's hand. Sarah, Nutrition Facts staff will reach out to you and get your address and your mailing address, and we will get a book right out to you. All right. Let me see what, should we try one more? Raise your hand if you want to do one more quick giveaway. Otherwise, we'll go straight to the webinar. What do you think? Raise your hand. Let me know. Okay. So if we get 1,000 hands raised, we'll do it again because that's about half the attendees. We have about 2,300 people on the call. We have about 700 hands raised. We have about 800 hands raised. 900 hands raised. Looks like we are going to go. We have 1,000. All right. So, all right, we'll do one more. This one, this I actually had in my fridge because they've become one of my favorite snacks. So are you ready? Okay, let me get this out of the way. Okay. All right. Dun, 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 dun. Are you ready? You ready to type? Ready to chat? Here we go. What are these? And these are not grapefruits. In fact, a grapefruit is a cross between this and an orange. That produces a grapefruit. But what is this? Let's see who won this round, and then we'll get to the webinar. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, now I got to find out where this started. Oh, I should have checked the clock. It was like 100 per minute. Okay, Here we go. And, there's lots of hand raised. Oh, okay, see lots of right answers here. Let's see what the first one was. It is not a lychee. That would be a big lychee. It's not a pawpaw. It's not a barberry or a kumquat or a mango or, oh my God, these are probably people who wrote their answer before I showed it. That's smart. That's totally smart. Oh my God, if I had a pawpaw, I would totally be showing you a pawpaw right now. And Amanda gets it. Amanda Beer gets pomelo at 12:04. Oh, beating out Carrie Nichols by mere seconds, I'm sure. But we will reach out to you, Amanda, and I will get you that cookbook. All right. Okay, that was fun, but let us get this webinar started. Just a few housekeeping logistics. If you can't hear me right now, there are instructions in the email that was sent out last week to tweak your audio settings. If at any time you run into technical difficulties, we have live Zoom staff standing by. In fact, I will paste that into the link, although it's, I don't know, so I just pasted that to everybody in the chat if you want to get that URL. If they're unable to help, we also have NutritionFacts.org staff standing by, though presumably if Zoom can't help, I don't know what we'll be able to do, but let me post that into the chat box as well, that email address, just so you have it handy if you ever run into problems. Okay, and next up, please reserve the Q&A button that you see in the Zoom window to ask content questions. The webinar will go for an hour, super quick. This is gonna just speed by. I've reserved some time for Q&A at the end, but please feel free to add your questions throughout the webinar. In fact, people were already typing in questions before the webinar even started. And the Nutrition Facts team right now will compile them and we'll get as many as possible answered at the end. You may want to wait to see if I cover it later on in the webinar, but feel free to ask anytime. All right. You do not have to worry about taking notes or anything. Why? Because after the webinar is over, not only will we send you a full recording of it, but also a free link to download all the videos in high def. So you can see the videos in their full resolution glory, and you can stop them and pause them and go back and anything you want to do. All right. Let me start with a video entitled, "Are Vegans at Risk for Iodine Deficiency?" Okay, let's find my, here's my video. Okay. Adequate dietary iodine is required for normal thyroid function. In fact, the two thyroid hormones are named after how many iodine atoms they contain, T3 and T4. Now, given that iodine is extensively stored in the thyroid gland itself, it's not something you have to get every day, but your overall diet needs to have some good source. Unfortunately, the common sources aren't particularly health-promoting. Iodized salt, dairy foods, because iodine-based cleansers like betadine are used to sanitize the udders, which results in some iodine leaching into the milk. They also add iodine to cattle feed. Some commercial breads have iodine-containing food additives. So if you put people on a paleo-type diet and cut out dairy and table salt, they can develop an iodine deficiency, even though they double their seafood intake, which can also be a source. What about those switching to diets centered around whole plant foods? I mean, they're also cutting down on ice cream and Wonder Bread, and if they're not eating anything from the sea, seaweed, sea vegetables, they can run into the same problem. Her parents reported striving to feed her only the healthiest foods. The 3-year-old only got plant-based, unsalted, unprocessed foods with no vitamin supplementation. Now, that could have been deadly. I mean, with no vitamin B12, those on strictly plant-based diets can develop irreversible nerve damage. But in this case, a goiter arose first due to inadequate iodine intake. Here's another case of veganism as a cause of iodine-deficient hypothyroidism in a toddler after weaning. Now, before weaning, He was fine because his mother kept taking her prenatal vitamins, which luckily contained iodine. Most vegetarians and vegans are apparently unaware of the importance of iodine in pregnancy, just as clueless as their omnivorous counterparts. The American Thyroid Association and the American Academy of Pediatrics have recommended that women even just planning on getting pregnant should ingest a daily supplement that contains 150 micrograms of iodine, yet only 60% of prenatal vitamins marketed in the U.S. contain this essential mineral. So, in spite of the recommendations, about 40% lack it. Therefore, it's extremely important that pregnant and breastfeeding women read the labels to ensure they are receiving an adequate amount. Women of reproductive age have an average iodine level of 110, which is fine for non-pregnant individuals, but we'd really like to see at least 150 in pregnancy. It's basically a 24-hour urine test in which iodine sufficiency is defined as 100 micrograms per liter of pee in non-pregnant adults, which your average vegan fails to reach in the largest study done to date out of Boston. The recommended average daily intake is 150 micrograms a day for most people, which you can get in like a cup and a half of cow's milk. Sadly, plant-based milks are typically not fortified with iodine, averaging only about 3 micrograms per cup. In the largest systematic study to date, although many plant-based milks are fortified with calcium, they only found just 3 of 47 fortified with iodine. Those that were had as much as cow's milk, but those that weren't fell short. Plant-based milk companies brag about enriching their milks with calcium and often vitamin B12, D, vitamin A, but only rarely are attempts made to match the iodine content. The only reason cow's milk has as much as it does is because they enrich the feed, or it comes dripping off their udders, right? So why don't plant milk companies add iodine too? Right? I was told by a food scientist at Silk that my carrageenan video played a role in them switching to another thickener. Hopefully they'll see this video and consider adding iodine too, or some company will snatch at the market advantage opportunity. The researchers conclude that individuals who consume plant-based milks not fortified with iodine may be at risk for iodine deficiency unless they consume alternative dietary iodine sources, the healthiest of which is sea vegetables, which we'll cover next. Okay, so to reiterate, one cause of hypothyroidism, an underactive thyroid gland, is my video on? Yeah. Of an underactive thyroid gland is inadequate iodine intake. This is especially important for pregnant women and women even considering pregnancy, but that largest study of vegan iodine status in Boston found most vegans have insufficient intake. So what's the best way to get it? What's the healthiest natural source of iodine? That's the name of the next video. Dairy milk supplies between a quarter and a half of the daily iodine requirement in the United States, though milk itself has little native iodine. The milk iodine content is mainly determined by factors like the application of iodine-containing teat disinfectants. The iodine residues in milk appear to originate mainly from the contamination of the teat surface. The teats are sprayed or dipped with like betadine-type disinfectants, and the iodine just kind of leaches into the milk. Too bad most of the plant-based milks on the market aren't enriched with iodine, too. Fortified soy milk is probably the healthiest of the plant milks, but even if it was enriched with iodine, what about the effects of soy on thyroid function? It's funny, when I searched the medical literature on soy and thyroid, this study popped up: a cost-effective way to train residents to do thyroid biopsies. Just stick the ultrasound probe right on top and go to town. It turns out on ultrasound, your thyroid gland looks a lot like tofu. Anyways, the idea that soy may influence thyroid function originated over 8 decades ago, when marked thyroid enlargement was seen in rats fed raw soybeans, though the observation that people living in Asian countries have consumed soy foods for centuries with no perceptible thyrotoxic effects certainly suggests their safety. Bottom line, there's not seemed to be a problem with people who have normal thyroid function. However, soy foods may inhibit the oral absorption of Synthroid, thyroid hormone replacement drugs, but so do all foods. Right? That's why we tell patients to take it on empty stomach. But you also have to be getting enough iodine, so it may be particularly important for soy food consumers to make sure their intake of iodine is adequate. What's the best way to get iodine? For those who use table salt, make sure it's iodized. Currently, only half of table salt sold contains iodine, and the salt used in processed foods is typically not iodized. Of course, ideally, we shouldn't add salt at all. Dietary salt is a public health hazard. I think this title is a little over the top. Dietary salt is the #1 dietary risk factor for death on the planet Earth, wiping out more than 3 million people a year, twice as bad as not eating your vegetables. What's the best source of iodine, then? Sea vegetables. Right? You can get a little iodine here and there from a whole variety of foods, but the most concentrated source by far, with up to nearly 2,000% of your daily allowance in just a single gram, which is like the weight of a paperclip, seaweed. And given that iodine is extensively stored in the thyroid, it can be safely consumed intermittently, meaning you don't have to get it every day, which makes seaweed use in a range of foods attractive and occasional seaweed intake enough to ensure iodine sufficiency. However, some seaweed should be used with caution due to its overly high iodine content, like kelp. Too much iodine can cause hyperthyroidism, a hyperactive thyroid gland. A woman presented with a racing heartbeat, insomnia, anxiety, and weight loss, thanks to taking just 2 tablets a day containing kelp. In my last video, I noted how the average urinary iodine level of vegans was less than the ideal levels, but there was one kelp-eating vegan with a urinary concentration over 9,000. Right? Adequate intake is when you're peeing out 100 to 199. Excessive iodine intake is when you break 300. 9,437, way too much. The recommended average daily intake is 150 micrograms a day for non-pregnant, non-breastfeeding adults. We may want to stay below 600 on a day-to-day basis, whereas a tablespoon of kelp may contain 2,000. Right? I'd stay away from kelp because it has too much, and stay away from hijiki because it contains too much arsenic. Here's how much of common seaweed preparation should give you an approximate daily allowance. 2 nori sheets, you can literally just nibble on them as snacks like I do. 1 teaspoon of dulse flakes, which you can just sprinkle on anything. 1 teaspoon of dried aramay, which is great for adding to soups, or 1 tablespoon of seaweed salad. If iodine is concentrated in marine foods, this raises the question of how early hominins living in continental areas could have met their iodine requirements. Well, here's what bonobos do, perhaps our closest relatives. During swamp visits, they all forage aquatic herbs. You can munch on aquatic plants yourself by incorporating seaweed into your diet, the healthiest natural source of iodine. Okay, so we have covered Okay, hold on. Okay, so we covered thyroid issues caused by either too little or too much iodine intake. But what about hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism caused by autoimmune diseases like Hashimoto's thyroiditis? That's what we'll turn to next in my video, The Best Diet for Hypothyroidism and Hyperthyroidism. And then I can finish eating my seaweed. There are several autoimmune diseases that affect the thyroid gland, the most common being Graves' disease and Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Graves' disease results in hyperthyroidism, an overactive thyroid gland. Though slaughterhouses are supposed to remove thyroid glands, should some neck meat slip in, you can suffer a similar syndrome called hamburger thyrotoxicosis, but that's not from your body making too much thyroid hormone, that's from your body eating too much thyroid hormone. Graves' disease is much more common, and meat-free diets may be able to help with both, as plant-based diets may be associated with a low prevalence of autoimmune disease in general, as observed, for example, in rural sub-Saharan Africa. Maybe it's because plants are packed with antioxidants, which are possible protective factors against autoimmune diseases. Maybe it's because plants are packed with anti-inflammatory compounds. After all, a whole food plant-based diet is basically synonymous with an anti-inflammatory diet. But you don't know until you put it to the test. It turns out the exclusion of all animal foods was associated with half the prevalence of hyperthyroidism compared with omnivorous diets. Lacto-ovo-vegetarian and fish-only diets were associated with intermediate protection, but a 52% lower odds of hyperthyroidism among those eating strictly plant-based diets. This apparent protection may be due to the exclusion of animal foods, the benefits of plant foods, or both. Animal foods, like meat, eggs, and dairy products, may contain high estrogen concentrations, for example, which have been linked to autoimmunity in preclinical studies, or the decrease in animal protein may downregulate IGF-1, which is not just a cancer-promoting growth hormone, but may play a role in autoimmune diseases as well. Or it could be the good stuff in plants that may protect cells, like the polyphenol phytochemicals, such as flavonoids found in plant foods. Maybe it's the environmental toxins that build up the food chain. For example, fish contaminated with industrial pollutants like PCBs are associated with increased frequency of thyroid disorders. OK, what about the other autoimmune thyroid disease, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which, assuming you're getting enough iodine, is the primary cause of hypothyroidism, an underactive thyroid gland. Graves' disease wasn't the only autoimmune disorder that was rare or virtually unknown among those living in rural sub-Saharan Africa eating near-vegan diets. They also appeared to have less Hashimoto's. There's evidence that those with Hashimoto's have compromised antioxidant status, but we don't know if it's cause or effect. But if you look at the dietary factors associated with blood levels of autoimmune anti-thyroid antibodies, animal fats seem to be associated with higher levels, whereas vegetables and other plant foods are associated with lower levels. So again, anti-inflammatory diets may be useful. No surprise, as Hashimoto's is an inflammatory disease. That's what thyroiditis means, inflammation of the thyroid gland. Another possibility is the reduction in methionine intake, an amino acid concentrated in animal protein, thought to be one reason why the consumption of whole plant foods is likely to have a favorable influence on longevity through decreasing the risk of cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. And methionine restriction improves thyroid function in mice, but has yet to be put to the test for Hashimoto's in humans. If you compare the poop of patients with Hashimoto's to controls, the condition appears to be related to a clear reduction in the concentration of Prevotella species. Prevotella are good fiber-eating bugs known to enhance anti-inflammatory activities. Decreased Prevotella levels are also something you see in other autoimmune conditions, such as multiple sclerosis and type 1 diabetes. How do you get more Prevotella? Eat more plants. But put a vegetarian on a diet of meat, eggs, and dairy, and within as few as 4 days, you can drive down levels. So one would expect those eating plant-based diets to have less Hashimoto's, but in a previous video I expressed concern about insufficient iodine intake, which could also lead to hypothyroidism. So which is it? Let's find out. Vegan diets tended to be associated with lower, not higher, risk of hypothyroid disease. Why the word tended? Because the associated protection against hypothyroidism incidence and prevalence studies did not reach statistical significance. It wasn't just because they were slimmer, the lower risk existed even after controlling for body weight, so they think maybe it's because animal products may induce inflammation. The question I have, though, is if someone who already has Hashimoto's, what happens if you change their diet? That's exactly what I'll explore next. OK, so that was about preventing hyperthyroidism or hypothyroidism, preventing Graves' disease and Hashimoto's. But what about a dietary intervention to treat Hashimoto's, treat hypothyroidism? That's what we'll close out with before I take questions. A natural treatment for Hashimoto's disease.
Autoimmune thyroiditis, also known as Hashimoto's disease, is an organ-specific autoimmune disorder where your body attacks your own thyroid gland, often leading to hypothyroidism due to destruction and scarring of the gland itself. We know there's a genetic component, since identical twins are more likely to share the disease than fraternal twins. However, even with identical twins, the concordance rate was only about 50%, meaning even if your identical twin with basically the exact same DNA as you has the disease, there's only like a flip of a coin's chance you'll get it, emphasizing that other important factors other than your genes play a role in the development of the disease. Genes load the gun, but environment may pull the trigger. More than 90 chemicals have been noted disrupting hormonal balance or thyroid function. However, only a few such pollutants show evidence that they contribute to autoimmune thyroid disease. These include polyaromatic hydrocarbons, which smokers get a lot from their cigarettes, but in non-smokers, exposure comes almost entirely from food. Polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons are primarily formed when muscle meats, such as beef and pork, fish, or chicken, are cooked by high-temperature methods such as grilling. PBBs are a type of flame-retardant chemical no longer manufactured in the U.S., but still found in the aquatic food chain, and PCBs are used in a number of industrial processes and end up in people's bodies, largely through the consumption of fish as well, but also other meat and eggs. So one might suspect those eating plant-based diets would have lower rates of hypothyroidism, and indeed, despite their lower iodine intake, vegan diets tended to be protective, but they've never been put to the test in an interventional trial. A modification of the Paleolithic diet has been tried in Hashimoto's patients, but didn't appear to improve thyroid function. What did, though, was Nigella sativa. That name should sound familiar to anyone who's read my latest book, How Not to Diet, or watched my latest live presentation, Evidence-Based Weight Loss. Nigella sativa is the sciencey name for black cumin, which is just a simple spice, but it's also used for a variety of medicinal purposes. In this study, a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial of 8 weeks of a half teaspoon of powdered black cumin a day in Hashimoto's patients, not only was there a significant reduction in body weight, which is why I profiled it in the book, it also significantly reduced thyroid-stimulating hormone, a sign that thyroid function was improving, and even lowered the level of autoimmune anti-thyroid antibodies, as well as increasing blood levels of thyroid hormone T3 in these Hashimoto's patients. In addition, there was a significant drop in interleukin-23, a pro-inflammatory cell signal thought to help promote the autoimmune inflammation of the thyroid, so further confirming the anti-inflammatory nature of the plant. And what were the side effects? Well, a 17% drop in LDL bad cholesterol. And given the fact that patients with Hashimoto's may be at particularly high risk of developing heart disease, well, this is exactly the kind of side effect we'd want. Considering these health-promoting effects of black cumin, it can be considered as a therapeutic approach in the management of Hashimoto's related metabolic abnormalities. A similar trial failed to find a benefit, though, same dose, same time frame, but no significant changes in thyroid function. In contrast with the last study, though, they were not all Hashimoto's patients, but rather hypothyroid for any reason, and that may have diluted the results. And it's possible that telling patients to take the black cumin doses with their thyroid hormone replacement therapy may have interfered with its absorption, similar to other foods and drugs, which is why patients are normally told to take it on an empty stomach. Since there are no downsides, it's just a simple spice, I figure, hey, why not give it a try? The worst that can happen is you'll have tastier food.
So, a half teaspoon of powdered black cumin seeds once a day on an empty stomach for Hashimoto sufferers. For those of you watching who have this disease, try it out. Let me know how it works. Okay, it is time for me to take questions. Let me just give Nutrition Facts staff a few minutes to compile them into a list for me. There's lots of, as you can imagine, with thousands of attendees, There's a gazillion questions, and lots of them are duplicates. So you can, try to find out what's the most common questions and put them all together into one question, and et cetera, rather than just asking questions that less people are interested in. Okay, so if you have not already clicked on the Q&A button to ask your questions, now's the time to do it, and I'll be back in 5 to go down the list. All right, and we are back. We have a long list of questions. My poor staff is overwhelmed, but my staff is awesome. In fact, today I think is Staff Appreciation Day. And so I appreciate you all. Actually sent everyone a video yesterday, but just say it again. Okay, let's get to your questions. First question in the queue, which is the staff's best attempt at compiling the most frequently asked question, and then we'll kind of go down the list. There is, please comment on the effect of cruciferous vegetables, both raw and cooked, have on the thyroid gland. I've heard a variety of opinions regarding cruciferous vegetables, one being they need to be cooked for a minimum of 30 minutes and not to be eaten raw when dealing with thyroid disorder. What are your thoughts? A fantastic question. So there are these so-called goitrogenic compounds found in some really healthy foods. Soy, we talked about. There's also cruciferous vegetables, also flax seeds. Now, these goitrogenic compounds interfere with the uptake of iodine into the thyroid gland. And so really only cause a problem at normal doses of these foods when you have inadequate iodine intake. So if you have marginal iodine status, and then on top of that, you're eating lots of soy, cruciferous, or flax seeds, you can run into problems. Okay, so the answer is to not avoid these super healthy foods. The answer is to just make sure you have enough iodine. Now, that's note I made a little caveat saying normal amounts of food. If you go way back, and in fact, I looked it up during the break here. This was the video November 3rd, 2010, over 10 years ago on Nutrition Facts. And that's, I believe this is a case report published in the New England Journal of Medicine. Showing how you can actually, the video is called Overdosing on Greens, Raw Cruciferous Vegetables, How Much is Too Much? And yes, you can indeed overdo it. So you don't have to worry about cooked cruciferous vegetables because the goitrogenic compounds are totally destroyed. It does take 30 minutes. But you can overdose on raw cruciferous vegetables, whether or not you have thyroid issues, because everybody needs a functional thyroid gland. Yes, New England Journal of Medicine, coma induced by raw bok choy. She was eating about 3 pounds a day, the woman in this case study, 3 pounds a day, every day of raw bok choy, 15 cups a day of raw cruciferous is too much. In the 2 months before she was admitted to the intensive care unit in respiratory failure, she had consumed about 1,000 cups of raw bok choy. Too much. Now, each cruciferous vegetable is different in terms of the amount of these compounds. And so if you actually go to the video I show, you can probably get away with 50 cups of raw cauliflower a day. Because cauliflower has less of these compounds. The cruciferous vegetable with the most is mustard greens. And so just 3 cups of mustard greens, of raw mustard greens, may be too much. I don't know who eats raw mustard greens. I mean, cooked mustard greens is delicious, but I don't know. But yeah, 3 cups of raw mustard greens, even if you have normal thyroid function, can raise your levels so much, interfere with even normal iodine levels. And so, yes, indeed. So I'm so glad you brought that up. Fantastic question. Okay. And if you have any questions, more questions about that, let me know. If you do not get your question answered today, I have, free Q&As on both YouTube Live and Facebook Live every month. Next month, we already did. Oh yeah. I just did one in April. I don't have my calendar up, but let me see. Let me bring my calendar up. Just so everyone can make sure they don't miss it. Oh, it is March 25th, Thursday, March 25th at noon Pacific. So 3 p.m. So the same time as this webinar. So 3 p.m. Eastern time, you will, I'll have more questions, be happy to answer more thyroid questions or questions about anything, of course. Okay, next question. Is could my thyroid, kind of a specific question for this particular person, maybe they just got their question in early. Could my thyroid be the cause of periodic night sweats, inability to stay asleep, and general lack of energy? Well, what you describe is a kind of a combination of hyperthyroidism symptoms and hypothyroidism symptoms. So probably not, right? You can't simultaneously have an overactive and an underactive thyroid gland. So night sweats would be more like a hyperactive hyperthyroidism, whereas lack of energy may be more hypothyroidism. Actually, what you describe sounds like, I don't know who the questioner is, but it sounds like kind of symptoms of perimenopause. When you start going through menopause, you have night sweats, insomnia, a bunch of other issues, things that I'm covering in my new book, How Not to Age, be out December 2022 in, but, I don't know, 20 months or so, 22 months. Anyway. All right. Next question. So the answer is no to that, I think. But so go to your doctor, figure out what it is. Okay. Is there a next question? Is there a connection between healthy thyroid and gut health, specifically bowel health? I think, well, from what I saw, it's mostly yes, but it's the other way around. It's the impact of your gut on your thyroid rather than the impact of your thyroid. Now, like you have hypothyroidism, you get constipated, so, I mean, can have implications for your gut, but what I find most fascinating is how the gut can impact your thyroid. And so what we want to do is eat a lot of prebiotics, which is fiber and resistant starch found throughout the plant kingdom and all whole plant foods, but concentrated in the drier whole foods. Like my pomelo here is 89% water. It is not a dry food. So you're like, wow, think of all the fiber in this pomelo. There's hardly anything in this. It's 89% water. But so you think of the drier whole plant foods, which is whole grains and legumes, beans, split peas, chickpeas, and lentils. Those are the most concentrated sources. And so that's where my bro bowl comes, right? If you missed my cooking video a couple days ago, I talk about one of the myriad uses of brole, which is this prebiotic mix to feed your good gut bacteria and to foster the growth of the fiber-feeding bacteria like Prevotella, which I talked about in that video, which have an anti-inflammatory effect. We feed them, they feed us right back with all sorts of wonderful things. Whereas if we eat foods stripped of fiber, like junk foods or animal foods, we can actually foster the growth of bad bacteria that make toxic things, toxic metabolites like trimethylamine, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, so yes, there is a connection between healthy thyroid and gut health. And we're finding more and more diseases are linked to the gut, even psychiatric diseases, anything having to do with inflammation, because the gut microbiome can have such a impact on systemic inflammation. So keep your gut bugs happy. How do we do that? By feeding them prebiotics and not taking antibiotics unless we really need them. Okay. Okay. Can I take black cumin alongside prescribed medications? Does it have to be ground before eating? You can take black cumin with prescribed medications as long as that prescribed medication isn't your thyroid replacement hormones, right? Your Synthroid, right? So we want to take all thyroid hormones on an empty stomach. But you can otherwise take black cumin with other meds. Does it have to be ground before eating? Well, we don't know, but the study was done with ground. So I would do what the study says. I was surprised. I did a video talking about chia seeds, the impact of chia seeds on omega-3 status, I think. And you even have to grind chia. I know you have to grind flax to maximize the benefits because it has that hard natural hold. But chia seeds, you think they're easy to chew. You think your body will be able to chew them right up. No. If they pass your teeth, they're not going to get further chewed up. And so we should even grind our chia seeds to maximize the benefits to get all those omega-3s. So if you eat non-ground chia seeds, you actually don't get a bump of omega-3s. And so it's like, wow, you're eating chia seeds because they have all the omega-3s, you're not getting any benefit. Anyway, so I would presume many of the benefits of black cumin seeds are lost if you don't grind them up. So what do? You can buy pre-ground, certainly. Or you can put it in a pepper grinder, which is what I do. I put black cumin seeds in a pepper grinder and just grind it on your food because it actually tastes like pepper and it's tasty. If you don't like the taste, some people don't like spicy food. Some people like bland food. You can get ground black cumin seed supplements. One ingredient, it's not an extract or anything. It's not a black seed oil. You see a lot of supplements like that. Just pure ground black cumin seeds. Although it's interesting, after my book came out, How Not to Diet, you couldn't get black cumin seed supplements through Amazon. They were all sold out. But presumably by now, it's been a year. Hopefully they're back in the market if you'd indeed, but try them out. I mean, it's actually tasty. If you like it, then, one less pill to take. Okay. This person had a complete bilateral thyroidectomy a dozen years ago. Any specific advice for those who no longer have a thyroid? How much iodine should those without thyroid take? Okay. So if you don't have a thyroid gland, then, suppressing the inflammation of your thyroid or preventing the autoimmune antibodies, suppressing the autoimmune antibodies that are attacking your thyroid glands doesn't make any sense because you don't have a thyroid to attack anymore. So you need to be on thyroid replacement hormone your whole life, like Synthroid, to just bring your levels up. Many people are hesitant to take drugs, but don't think of it as a drug. It's not really a drug. You're just bringing your levels up to normal. It's not like adding some foreign substance. You're adding just normal, regular substance that your body would normally make. It's the exact same stuff. And you're just bringing levels back up to normal. The question about iodine intake is fascinating. If the only function of iodine in the body is to make thyroid hormones, then you don't need any iodine if you don't have a thyroid. But I actually don't know if that's the case. That's the only thing that I know iodine does in the body is as part of thyroid hormones. But does your body need iodine for other things? I have no idea. Wow. So it just fascinates me when I don't know something and I want to look it up. So I don't know the answer to that. If you need any iodine whatsoever, you don't have a thyroid gland. Now, of course, if you got pregnant, then you do have a thyroid gland in your uterus or developing one. So then, of course, you need to get iodine. Anyway, good question. Okay. Is intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating safe for someone with Hashimoto's? Oh, I don't see why not. So if you have Hashimoto's and you're being treated with thyroid replacement hormone, you're just like everybody else. Basically, you're just on this medication. It's not really a medication, right? You're just bringing levels back to normal. So you should be able to intermittent fast or time-restricted eat like anybody else. Of course, I would encourage people to check out my videos or read the chapter in How Not to Diet on intermittent fasting. I talk about the pros and cons of all the different types. There's actually downsides to many of them, with only, so there are benefits to the fasting mimicking diet and early time-restricted feeding. Okay, that's the kind of spoiler alert there. All right. Do I think it's possible to reverse hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's with dietary change? Okay, well, it depends what's causing the hypothyroidism. That all hypothyroidism means is underactive thyroid gland. If it's caused by iodine deficiency, well, then absolutely it can be reversed with diet. In fact, that's the only way to reverse. I mean, that's what you do. You're not getting enough iodine. You get enough iodine, and poof, it reverses because it was a consequence of your iodine deficiency. So probably the most common cause of hypothyroidism on the planet, presumably that's iodine deficiency. Not in the industrialized world, but the total world. And so, yeah, diet is the preferred treatment. But in terms of Hashimoto's, can you reverse Hashimoto's with a dietary change alone? And we have no data. I mean, that just has not been. I mean, well, the paleo diet was put to the test and found to be useless. There's never been a study where they put people on a plant-based diet to see if you can actually change. And there's this black human study which showed an improvement. So I guess you could say that's a reversal of the progression, right? It's actually improvement in thyroid function, actually started pumping out more thyroid hormone and your body was responding, and it decreased these anti-thyroid antibodies that were attacking your thyroid. So in that way, I guess it's reversing. But like when you talk about reversal, like so that you don't have the disease at all anymore and your thyroid function is fine, that we don't know. But it's certainly, particularly because Hashimoto's patients are at higher risk for heart disease, well, then you have to be on a plant-based diet. I mean, we should be on a plant-based diet anyway, whole food plant-based diet, to protect ourselves from heart disease. So, and try adding the black cumin and report back to me and tell me how well it works. Okay, next is a question: can a gluten-free diet help with Hashimoto's? Should gluten be avoided for people with high thyroid antibodies? Before I say no, let me look up. I'm doing a quick PubMed search just to make sure, but the connection one here's between gluten-free diets is Hashimoto's is just a connection between different autoimmune diseases. If you have one autoimmune disease, you are at increased likelihood of having another autoimmune disease. So if you have type 1 diabetes, or if you have Hashimoto's, or if you have rheumatoid arthritis or lupus, or then you may be at higher likelihood of having other ones, including an autoimmune disease called celiac disease. For celiac disease patients, you absolutely have to avoid gluten. It's rare. It's only about 1 in 140 people here in the States. But if you're at the less than 1% that actually has celiac disease, then you have to avoid gluten. And so if you have anti-thyroid antibodies, you're at higher risk of having celiac disease, but it doesn't mean you have celiac disease. And in terms of could it help? Let's check it out. There was just an article published in summer of 2019, and it found that serum titers, so a gluten-free diet for 6 months, a small group of 34 women, and study protocol. Oh, yeah, did not affect thyroid hormone levels. So going on a gluten-free diet for those without celiac disease did not affect their thyroid function. So there's the answer to your question. And are there any other studies that looked at it? Just I don't want to. You always got to look at all the studies done on there's only 19 papers, and nope, doesn't look like any other. It's only been put to the test once, and it failed, and the one time it was put to the test. Of course, you have celiac disease. It's another question. And you just have to avoid gluten, but it's not because of your thyroid; it's because of your celiac. Okay. Next question: what are the chances of introducing eliminated foods back into your diet intermittently at a later time after healing? Okay, so this question is implying that an elimination diet will help with Hashimoto's, and that's not the case. Elimination diets are useful for if somebody has some strange allergy or food intolerance to figure out what is causing an issue. But I would not expect that to be the case with thyroid function. Okay, next question. Is there a relationship between thyroid issues and PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome? That's a good question. I don't know. Let's find out. We're doing this in real time. And, well, it says Hashimoto's may increase polycystic ovary syndrome in Asia. This is a 2020 study. Increased risk of, it does look like there's an increased risk of PCOS in those with autoimmune thyroid disease. All right. Oh, even suggesting that PCOS may actually be an autoimmune disease or have some autoimmune component. I'm just trying to see the hazard ratios here. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, not huge amount, but increased risk like 40%. Oh, that's significant. So whatever risk you have for polycystic ovaries, if you have autoimmune thyroiditis, your risk is about 40% more based on the single study published April 2020. It's just the most recent study that's been done on it, at least that's cataloged by the largest medical library database, which is PubMed. Okay. Okay. This is exciting. Have you heard about mycotoxins and mold colonization in the body system being a cause of thyroid problems? Oh boy, this is a fantastic topic. Is it a webinar? I hope so. I love doing webinars, and so I'm always telling my staff, let's do a webinar on this. And the staff is like, look, we can't have webinars all the time, and it takes a lot of work. And so I don't always get but I think I asked, let's do a mycotoxin webinar. I don't know, I forget if it's shot down or not, or it's coming up. I know there's an exciting webinar topic next month, or we haven't even announced it yet, but I'm gonna announce it right now. I gotta open up my calendar again. Okay, hold on. I think I remember what it is. SIBO and FODMAP diets, right? SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. That is that is an April webinar. Let me see, just so you can clear your schedule if you're interested. And leaky gut, SIBO and leaky gut. Sorry, there we go. SIBO and leaky gut on April 23rd. I don't think we even have a time yet for it. That's exciting. Okay, so anyway, I've got a series of videos coming out talking about mycotoxins, which are fungal toxins, which are found in the number of different products. We're not just talking about aflatoxin, which is like the kind of moldy peanuts you may have heard of, but much more common ones, including those found in kind of the industrialized world. But in terms of, I don't think there's any thyroid connection whatsoever, but I talk in one of the videos that, like these mycotoxin mold issues are blamed on everything. Of course, people are selling supplements and testing kits and all sorts of crazy stuff. There's a whole bunch of shady snake oil science, pseudoscience. But there is actually legitimate concerns, and that's like the perfect video. I mean, the perfect topic to do video about, because it's like, wait a second, there's like controversy, but there's nugget of truth. So like, what it really is it? So anyway, I'm going to talk mycotoxins. If I don't do a webinar about it, at least the videos will be up. So stay tuned. That'd be fun. That'd be fun. Hopefully it'll be a webinar. All right. How are we doing on time? Oh my God, let me see if I can get another quick one in. Can a person following a plant-based diet ever completely come off thyroid medications like levothyroxine? And the answer is probably no, because most people with Hashimoto's they've so fibrosed their thyroid, so scarred it up because your body was attacking it, that it basically loses its function. Just like, if you have type 2 diabetes, a plant-based diet can often reverse completely type 2 diabetes, but only, I think, but the good odds are only within like the first 8 years of video coming out about it. Within the first 8 years, you can get some really good success rates with reversing type 2 diabetes completely. But after 8 years, it's still possible, but the reversal rates go down, and that's because your poor pancreas has been, your ability of your pancreas to secrete insulin just gets so hammered after so many years that even if you go on a good diet, it may be kind of too late. Your pancreas may have petered out. Well, another gland, your thyroid, can also get so adversely affected, there's just kind of no going back. Even if you were able to decrease the inflammation, decrease the autoimmune antibodies, it may be too late. But again, it's not really, I don't think of it as a thyroid medication, because it's not medication. It's just the actual hormone that your body makes or used to make, but just doesn't make enough. So you just bring your levels up. So you're not introducing some kind of, fancy pharma drug. You're literally just taking the same hormones, very simple hormones, simple molecule, back to the levels where it should be for optimal health, which is important. And on that note, I want to thank everybody. Time is almost up. I hope everyone learned a ton. I know I certainly did. And as I always end my webinars, look, I learn as much as anybody during these videos, during my monthly live Q&As. I really only have two kinds of answers. One is check out my video on it. Well, three answers. One, check out my video on it. Two, I have no idea. I'll look it up. Or three, I've got a video coming up about it, so stay tuned. And that's because, look, I don't know any of this stuff either. I wasn't taught much real nutrition in medical school, so I've got to dig into the primary literature and like anybody else, and dig up all the original studies and figure it out myself. And I'm just so honored to be able to share this information with all of you. So thank you, everyone, for taking this journey with me. Stay safe, be kind, and eat your veggies.